Welcome students. Today we are going to talk about employee empowerment. In the coming 3 sessions, we will talk about several aspects of this employee empowerment. The objectives of today's session are to understand employee empowerment, give the rationale for empowerment, how this empowerment can be implemented, and also how to recognize empowered employees. Over the coming few sessions, we will be talking extensively about various aspects of these objectives that I have just mentioned. To introduce you to what is employee empowerment, what does it do? When an employee is empowered, then that employee gets a certain degree of responsibility and autonomy. He or she feels that he is provided with a certain degree of responsibility and autonomy because he is empowered. It increases a sense of ownership and thus the responsibility of the individual. Empowered personnel are more passionate and they desire to embrace changes. You will see innovation when personnel are empowered, when employees are empowered. Let's talk about this concept of employee empowerment and what is the history of this whole concept of employee empowerment. Way back in 1988, Conger and Kanungo popularized the concept of employee empowerment. This concept that they have proposed was given a relational as well as motivational dimension. How did they describe it? They described it as a process of enhancing feelings of self-efficacy among organizational members through the identification of conditions that foster powerlessness and through their removal both by formal organizational practices and informal techniques of providing efficacy information. So this has both the dimensions, and when you see this term self-efficacy, I'm sure you're all aware what self-efficacy is. Self-efficacy is the belief in the capability of self to attain a particular task, in being able to achieve what one wants. So this sense of self-efficacy is enhanced through self-empowerment is what Conger and Kanungo have said. Thomas and Welthouse in 1990, they talked about the changes in cognitive variables which determine motivation in workers. So in the previous definition, we talked about relational as well as motivational aspects. Now we are going to talk about the cognitive variables. Conceptually, according to these proponents, empowerment was made more precise by identifying with what is called intrinsic task motivation. Here again, we are talking about motivation. Now, this motivation that we are talking about right now is intrinsic task motivation and a set of task assessments that provide this motivation. So what is this intrinsic task motivation? What is intrinsic task motivation? This is a motivation which comes from within. The task enables the individual to feel intrinsically motivated, and it is not that only for some external benefit. The model also attempted to capture the interpretive processes through which the workers arrive at these assessments, which I have mentioned a little while ago. A set of task assessments that we talked about. Now, it also talks about the interpretive processes through which the workers arrive at those assessments. So, according to Thomas and Welthouse, empowerment is viewed as a motivational construct, and how this motivation can be achieved is also discussed. Then in 1992, Owen and Lawler, they talked about employee empowerment, and they focused on empowering management practices. And what are those practices? What all are included under this empowering management practices? First and foremost is the delegation of decision making from higher to lower organizational levels. Very often, it is believed by people that decision is made, up there at the highest level. It is just that you have to work and work. However, this delegation of decision making from higher to lower organizational levels was what was important. Then increasing access to information and resources, again from higher to lower levels, is one more important aspect which has been focused upon in terms of empowerment. Spreitzer in 1995 defined employee empowerment again as a motivational construct, and this involved four important cognitive aspects. What are those four cognitions that Spreitzer talks about? Meaning, competence, self-determination, impact. We will be coming back to these four cognitions again at a later point in time in a different context. But please remember that these are the four important cognitive aspects highlighted by Spreitzer. Meaning implies the value of a work, goal, or purpose judged in relation to an individual's own ideas or standards. Competence or self-efficacy, I have mentioned this a while ago. Self-efficacy. Competence or self-efficacy is an individual's belief in his or her ability to perform activities with a particular skill, Self-determination, the third component, cognitive component, is an individual's sense of having choice in initiating as well as regulating actions. And the fourth one, the impact, is the degree to which an individual can influence strategic administration or operating outcomes at work. From here, let's move on to Menon's interpretation of employee empowerment. Menon talks about three major psychological facets of power. Menon defines psychological empowerment as a cognitive state which is characterized by perceived control, perceived competence, and goal internalization. These three are the major facets that he talked about. What is perceived control? Perceived control refers to the beliefs about authority, decision making, latitude and availability of resources, autonomy in scheduling, and others. So, how much of control are you able to perceive with relation to all these? The second is perceived competence, role mastery, in which, in addition to successful completion of assigned tasks, it also requires coping up with non-routine tasks. Doing routine tasks regularly is one way of looking at our workload. But in addition to that, the competence that I perceive in myself in being able to cope up with even the non-routine tasks, certain challenges, so to say, is also equally important, according to Menon. Goal internalization is the energizing property of a worthy cause or exciting vision provided by the organizational leadership. So, the internalization of the goal happens when the energizing property of worthy cause or exciting vision is provided by the organizational leadership. So, it is both at an individual level but also at an organizational level. So, empowerment involves the delegation of authority. Let's summarize. From all these, the history of defining, interpreting, explaining, analyzing what is employee empowerment, we have just looked at that so far. Now let us summarize. Empowerment involves the delegation of authority from management to the employees on hierarchical forms of work organization and sharing of information between as well as within different levels of organization. Empowerment also implies the freedom and ability to make decisions and commitment. Freedom as well as ability to make decisions as well as having a commitment, demonstrating a commitment, that freedom to do this, both to make decisions and for commitment. That is what is empowerment. So if we have to look at the definitions, maybe we can have a quick look at what empowerment is and what certain very well-known names in the literature have talked about empowerment. Empowerment is a process of enabling or authorizing an individual to think, behave, act, and control work and decision making in autonomous ways, not as a dependent person on someone. Richard Kath Nelson says, empowerment is the process coming to feel and behave as if one is in power and to feel as if they own the firm. Look at how this last part is phrased, as if they own the firm, which means you feel the oneness, you feel the oneness, you feel the unity with that organization, and you feel that you have the power to determine things. Bowen and Lawler say that employee empowerment refers to the management strategies for shared decision making power. This is where the whole difference is. When there is an organization which means to have employee empowerment, this decision making power is shared owing to their management strategies that they implement. Whereas those which follow only autocratic decision making strategies may not have the same kind of employee empowerment that we have been talking about. In a workplace, an individual or team performance is dependent not only on one's own behavior but also on that of the other associated individuals or teams. It's not one individual who can determine the success of an organization. If anyone claims that one is responsible for an organizational success, we all know that that is not true. It's a team, an individual or team performance in dependence on the other teams or within the team or between the teams, between the individuals, how the coordination and collaboration is, all these things matter. So in a workplace, team performance is dependent on several individuals or teams for that matter. An empowered person, and now extended to the team, an empowered team has better control over his or her surroundings and more specifically the work area. So let's move a little more in depth into the concept of empowerment. It's an ongoing process of providing the tools, infrastructure, training, resources, encouragement, and motivation the workers need to perform at the optimum level. So, performance of the work just because they have to work, or is it at the optimum level? That is where the whole difference is. Empowerment speeds up processes with quality production as well as the services. There will be more control of employees' own work life since authority is given to an individual to take decisions and make decisions. Each individual, each employee will enjoy that decision making power and authority. It reveals hidden potential among employees. The concept of empowerment enables individuals to bring out whatever hidden potential is there within each employee. So, thus, having talked about the meaning of empowerment, the historical analysis of how empowerment has been defined and interpreted, and also giving a summary of empowerment, let us now move on to the theoretical approaches to empowerment. Let's start with socio-structural perspective. Redesigning or advancing organizational policies, practices, and structures to provide power, authority, and influence to employees is what socio-structural perspective advocates. It talks about redesigning and advancing organizational policies, practices, and the structures. Everything is going to be redesigned in such a way that the employees feel the power, authority, and influence are provided and they feel it. Then the psychological approach, on the other hand, talks about empowering employee effectiveness by developing their competence and the sense of self-determination. That is, things which are done are determined by self, not by somebody else other than self. One is the competence, understanding that they have competence and utilizing the competence. In addition to that, the self-determination. Then coming to the critical perspective, empowerment leads to a less precise control over employees. Because there is a lot of autonomy assigned to each employee, then the control then becomes a question mark according to critical perspective. So the principle of employee empowerment, if I have to put it in a nutshell, Management allowing employees to take decisions time and again with reference to all the interpretations that several theorists have given. We have been coming back to this issue. Management allowing employees to make decisions, and in the process you reduce the instructions of the managers, or determine the managers determining what the employees have to do or how to do or what to do. The key elements here of employee empowerment thus will be efficient hiring system and constant training. Let me tell you, though it appears very simple, self-decision making, self-determination, commitment, all these appear very good. But then when it comes to application, there may be a need to understand who is capable of this. So efficient hiring system and a constant training, constant revising, constant upgrading, constant looking into introspection, constant learning of new skills, constant innovation. All these come into the picture when we talk about constant training. If that is the case, what is the role of the management in this empowerment process? The role of management is to establish a creative, open, non-threatening environment for motivated, dedicated employees to flourish. It's mutual. One is creating this kind of environment, then the employees will be motivated and dedicated. Second, you have already motivated and dedicated employees. They flourish when you enhance the creative, open, non-threatening environment. Commitment, leadership, and facilitation is what the management's role will come into picture in. It is their commitment and bringing out that commitment from the employees, the leadership which the management demonstrates, and the facilitating role, and the commitment that the management has in empowering the employees. All these become very important. So specifically speaking, if we have to talk about a manager's role, the supportive attitude of the manager, how he or she is a role model, how he or she can be a mentor, trainer, facilitator, how the manager can practice management by walking around, by mingling with people, by being a part of them, taking quick action on recommendations, and recognizing the employee accomplishments. It's not that the manager takes all the credit for whatever the accomplishments of employees are, but also go with them, acknowledge them, recognize them, and yes, praise them where necessary. And taking quick action and or recommendations based upon whatever is happening, being cognizant to that, being alert to that. All these are very important when it comes to the role of a manager. In addition to that, brainstorming, where employees are motivated to share their views and ideas. And when we talk about the ideas are recorded. Then after that, the evaluation process begins. It's not that you brush it off when somebody says something that is insignificant. No, all the ideas are encouraged. Then evaluation begins. And then going through that list, when you brainstorm, several ideas may come, good, bad, whatever, irrespective of whether small, minor, major, whatever. Let the list build up first. And then you go for the evaluation, go through the list, and assess the relative merits of each idea. When an idea is given, is this feasible? Is this practical? Is this measurable? Is this applicable? That you see, look at the merits of each of these ideas. Some of the ideas may not be, they may sound very good, but practically they may not be possible. So you will eliminate them. And thus, this process goes on till there is a consensus arrived at implementation of one or two or whatever few particular ideas are acceptable to everyone and are found practical for everyone. Then quality circles. It's a group of employees, and these employees, this group assembles regularly and makes group decisions regarding improvements in the organization. What can be done, in what way it can be done. Quality circle members are volunteers who summon themselves and conduct their own meetings. Unlike this brainstorming. In brainstorming, you ask for ideas. And in quality circle, the members are volunteers. They themselves meet up and conduct their own meetings. They discuss their work. They predict problems. They propose workplace improvements. They set goals and they make plans. Then we also mentioned walking and talking, management by walking around. This is a very effective way to solicit input. You become one among them. And you prompt employee input, and you ask the right questions and to use open-ended questions as well. So leaders, what is the role of a leader? Leaders can give power to those who have demonstrated the capacity to handle responsibility. They can create a favorable environment, and they don't second guess others' decisions. You don't have to do that. They don't second, they guess others' decisions. Employee discretion and autonomy is used by the leaders. What is the need for the empowerment? Why empowerment? One, for motivation. The group develops ways to motivate itself and develops methods for staying efficient. Organizational outcome then would be much more, the productivity would be very good. Creativity, a sense of accomplishment and feeling valued. It engages critical and creative thinking. Empowering an employee leads to unique ways to add worth to the organization and also to revise the processes which are ongoing. Then there will be a job satisfaction. A sense of autonomy provides a job satisfaction to the individual. The individual feels comfortable with his or her job. Coming to the decision making, quick decisions to find new ways to meet customer demands, independent decision making happens over here. Quick decisions are made, and then all these in turn enhances self-confidence. Same is the case with loyalty. Employee exhibits loyalty if supported, respected, listened to, and valued. Then there may be cost savings, allowing employees to suggest and make procedural changes. Jobs are more efficient and organizations benefit by saving money. Then morale. We cannot underestimate the importance of this. This is very important. Empowered employees feel a greater sense of responsibility. Employees are in charge of their results, and that boosts up the morale of the employees. They feel I'm contributing. I have my own contribution over here. Management employee relationship will be strengthened, and the employees as well as the managers will bond much better. Direct accountability will be there. When the empowered employees are there, they're accountable for their jobs and they make their own decisions. So accountability factor is high. Job duties, where we allow experienced employees to alter their job duties, the productivity will be better. Empowered employees evolve their own job descriptions and the productivity may be much better. And team structure, where empowered employee will create an own structure. How the team processes information and efficiently executes its duties depends upon the team where all the members are empowered. So we will share some case examples. I'll just share one case example today and probably the remaining in the next session. Let's talk about Timson. John Timson's upside down management principle is well known. He has been empowering his team for decades and has published successful books on his practices as well. He provides a thorough training scheme and gives the colleagues access up to 500 to solve customer issues before they need authorization from a manager. Till that extent, the amount is, they can take decisions till that amount. But beyond that, probably they have to talk to a manager and authorization from the manager. But to a large extent, it's not a small amount that we are talking about. And this means they can resolve their issues quickly and efficiently, and at the same time, they're being trusted. An employee feels empowered thus. So we will stop the session for today, and we will continue in the next session. We have talked about the history of employee empowerment as a concept. We have talked about the meaning and definition. We have also talked about various factors and aspects of employee empowerment. And with a case study, I concluded today. Thank you. Good day to you all.